The I Ching is an application of the principles of the Kybalion. I heard people who read the Kybalion complain that the Kybalion promises that if they understand the principles of the Kybalion, that the doors of the temple will fling wide open for them. But they say that nothing so dramatical has happened to them. The purpose of this video and series of videos is to dramatically open the doors of the temple for you. In this series of videos, you will learn the science of change, which was discovered long ago by the ancient sages of China. With this science, which forms the basis of the I Ching, you will be able to apply the principles of the Kybalion into your life so that you can become what the I Ching calls the superior man or woman. This is powerful stuff, able to change civilizations and, of course, lives. We need to start at the beginning with the concept of Yin and Yang. Yin changes into Yang, and Yang changes into Yin. The symbol for Yang is a horizontal line, and the symbol for Yin is a broken horizontal line. We will now take a look at a few examples so that we can understand this concept. Let's imagine a pendulum. If the pendulum is swinging towards me, that's Yang. And if the pendulum is swinging away from me, that's Ying. The concept of Yin and Yang, of course, is not limited to just the movement of material objects. It can also be applied to energy, for example. Let's say that I'm applying strength with my arm. That would be Yang. And then I get tired and I need to rest. That would be Ying. Furthermore, we can apply this concept to the skill that I use to move my arm. If I am completing a difficult task, that would be Yang. But if I am doing a simple task that doesn't require a lot of skill, that would be Ying. These three examples are three aspects of change that could be Yin or Yang. If I am, for example, playing ping pong, these three aspects would come into play, and sometimes they would be Yin and sometimes they would be Yang. If, for example, I am hitting the ball while I am aiming, that would be the ball going away from me would be Yin. Me using strength to hit the ball would be Yang, and me aiming using my skill to aim would be Yang. So this would be Yin, Yang, Yang. This is one of 8 possible combinations of Yin and Yang in what we will call trigrams, because it's 3 states that are combined to produce a situation. We will study this concept at length in another video. In the I Ching, we find Yin and Yang symbols in stacks of 6, which are called hexagrams. That is because in the I Ching, we deal with situations that have 6 aspects of change. These hexagrams, which are collections of yin and yang symbols, are read from the bottom to the top. The aspects that we have discussed in our examples are the aspects that relate to the body. But we human beings live in a dual reality of body and mind. So that's why there are a total of 6 aspects. 3 for the body and 3 for the mind. And the principle of correspondence of the Kybalion applies to these 2 sets of aspects. The 6 aspects are: number 1, the frame of the body; number 2, the strength of the body; and number 3, the skill of the body that you use to move your body. For the mind, we have the emotions, the reasoning or understanding, and experience or memory or wisdom. We will now talk about the correspondence, which is a principle of the Kybalion, between the 2 sets of 3 aspects. If you want to produce change in the material world, you use energy, you use strength. If you want to produce change in the mental world, you use reasoning and understanding. In order to guide your strength, you use skill. And in order to guide your understanding, you use experience, knowledge. Now, the feelings move us. They move us to go to different places, or people, or it could be virtual places. It could be a poem, a picture, or just a thought. The body also takes us places, but those are actual physical places. Now, we're looking at an example, a random example of a hexagram. Hexagram number 51, called shock. The bottom line is a yang line, and it means that we are coming. And the next yang line is line 4, which means excitement. We're excited about returning. Or we could say we're coming with excitement. An example of this situation would be, for example, during World War II, let's say that the air raid alarm goes off and we have to go to the bomb shelter. So we would be excited about returning to safety as quickly as possible. A concept I haven't mentioned yet is that of changing yin or changing yang. Changing yang is when yang is about to change into yin, and changing yin is when yin is about to change into yang. Let's say that our hexagram 51 has 2 changing symbols or lines. Let's say, again randomly, lines 3 and 6. Line 3, changing, would mean that returning to the shelter would require some skill. It's not that easy, because maybe there is some debris surrounding the shelter from the previous air raid, And line 6 changing would mean that we don't have enough knowledge. We lack experience or knowledge. That could mean that we just don't remember where the entrance to the shelter is. So line 3 being the line of skill means we don't have enough skill, or we're not using enough skill at the moment. And line 6 being the line of knowledge means we don't have at the moment the necessary knowledge. We need to increase our knowledge. Now let's see what the old I Ching book has to say about Hexagram 51, line 3 changing. We're using the legs translation. And line 3 changing Ying is about needing to act with more skill during a shocking situation. Now, quoting from the book, line 3, the third divided, shows its subject distraught amid the startling movements going on. If those movements excite him to right action, there will be no mistake. In this case, right action would be actioned with sufficient skill. Now let's take a look at what the I Ching has to say about Hexagram 51, line 6 changing. The line about needing to have more knowledge during a shocking situation. Again, we're using legs translation. And I quote, line 6, the topmost divided, shows its subject amidst the startling movements of the time, in breathless dismay, and looking around him with trembling apprehension. If he take action, there will be evil. If, while the startling movements have not reached his own person and his neighborhood, he were to take precautions, there would be no error, though his relatives might still speak against him. End of quote. This is a person that doesn't know what to do. If he were to take action, there will be evil. However, if he's able to figure out something that he can do before the shock reaches him, then there will be no error. However, his relatives would not be happy with his indecision and might speak against him for his lack of knowledge. In this video, we're just barely scratching the surface. In future videos, we will need to go deeper and wider. We need to go a lot more in depth about the aspects and their correspondence. We need to look at them as levels of consciousness, and we need to learn how to master them. Regarding the hexagrams, we need to study and understand each one of them. There are 64, and for that we need to study and understand the trigrams. There are 8 of each, the lower trigram and the upper trigram. And we need to study each changing line of each hexagram. There are 384 of those. Plus, there are other subjects where the I Ching can be applied, or rather, the science of change can be applied, from robotics to music and beyond. As you can see, I have sufficient material already for hundreds of videos.